Hey everyone, I have a new album review for you today. It is The Knife's Shaking the Habitual. I've said that I'm going to review it a little bit on Twitter. I have kind of been putting it off a bit because it's a very long album. I think it goes for like over an hour and a half, and yeah, I'd listened to it, I knew the amount of detail in it, and yeah. But yeah, I won't be able to cover all the detail in it. I will be able to talk about it and my opinions in brief. The Knife are a Swedish electronic music duo made up of Karen and Olof Dreyer. I think I pronounced that hopefully correctly. In the past they've covered quite a few different electronic genres in their music. They're not really a band who kind of stick to one. They experiment around a bit. They've had IDM, experimental, synth pop, all of the above and more. And they've had quite a few good albums. I haven't really listened to them a lot, but I have heard enough, and I also really enjoyed Fever, I enjoyed Fever Ray, which was Karen's solo project, which I actually have a vinyl of here. I actually did a showcase on this. Well, I haven't actually uploaded it yet because I'm lazy, but you will see that in the next day or two. So this album is very long. There's a lot of different details in it. Production on it is actually absolutely impeccable. It could not be possibly better. The amount of details in it, it really needs to be really good production so you can actually hear all that sort of stuff. And honestly, I think you probably need studio headphones if you want to being able to appreciate it to the extent that they intended it. So, Tooth for an Eye, the opener. Straight up, the production is just really obvious how good it is. This song's kind of like a typical Knife track. It's not really anything overly experimental. Just, yeah, straight up it shows the attention to detail. Great melody in it. And actually this song had a lot of similar sounds than in Fever Ray, and of course that's going to be expected, but I thought more so in this track than a lot. But Fever Ray was kind of, while it was really great production and everything, it was kind of simpler in terms of how many sounds were there. Not in a bad way, that's what really shone on that album, but The Knife kind of brings in a lot more sounds on this album, and it's a lot more to digest. Full of Fire is this 9-minute long track. There's so many 9-minute long tracks, it's anything out of the ordinary. Starts off with this really noisy electronic beat and just progresses through. It's kind of in 3 sections, where the first section and the last section are very similar, and the middle section it kind of brings in these experimental sounds over the melody and sounds that were in the first and third section. Had some really interesting sounds in there. I couldn't really describe it. There's so many sounds in this album that are just impossible to describe. Like, there's a sound in this track which is, like, the best way I could describe it is kind of squeaky. Like, it's not, yeah. You need to listen to this album if you want to get the amount of detail that you need to understand what the hell I'm talking about. Yeah, this track just has so many layering of sounds, as most of them do. I think there's 1 or 2 which are a little bit simpler, but only to a certain extent. It's an hour and 40-minute long album. I'm pretty sure that's how long it is, and the amount of detail in this is just, it's a lot to wrap your head around. The cherry on top. Now this is possibly my favourite song on the album. Overall you could probably describe it as an ambient track. It starts off with this kind of more subtle ambience, really pretty, brings in more sounds as the track goes along. This song's kind of in 2 sections in my head. As you probably noticed if you've seen a few of my reviews, that's kind of how my head works with longer songs. It kind of tries to put things into sections, I guess. But while this is ambient and it's quite subtle, it's certainly nothing simple. It's very quite detailed. The amount of sounds going on in the background is very quietly that you really do need to be listening and paying attention to actually notice. It's just insane. The first half kind of has this like pulsating synth to it, and by the second half, the time was almost split exactly in 2. And the second half brings in this stringed guitar. I think it's just a standard acoustic guitar. It could be a sitar. It's kind of a little bit hard to tell with other sounds going on. And it plays this kind of odd melody, is probably the best way I can describe it. But it's really pretty, and it also has this really thick bassy drone over the top of it. And the vocals kind of come in piercing the silence, I guess you could say, and yeah, just a really dark, deep melody that's really quite eerie, and yeah, it's an absolutely incredibly beautiful song. And the next track kind of brings it back with a bit more fun kind of sound. Without You My Life Would Be Boring. It uses like woodwind instruments as the main kind of melody driver, and even some thicker, maybe clarinet, I think, as a deeper kind of bass in replacement of the electronic sounds which they would usually use. It's a lot more upbeat. It's very, very fast paced. It's very quite juvenile in a way, but that doesn't mean that it's not detailed by any means. but it's certainly a bit more of a fun track as opposed to the last and the next one. The next one being Wrap Your Arms Around Me. This is another one of my favourite songs. It has a much darker melody and vocals. It was kind of doomy actually in the Knife way. It was very eerie and very pretty. Then it comes in with Crake, which is kind of this interlude between that track and the very long ambient track which is to follow. There's two interludes on this album, both kind of noisy and drony. I didn't really think much of either. They just weren't necessary really. I don't know why they're in there. They weren't interesting at all. They were just put in there, so yeah, I didn't think much to them, but each their own. And then we got this 20-minute long Old Dreams Waiting to Be Realised. Now I think a lot of the Knife fans might not be ambient listeners, so I think it'll probably turn a lot of people off. I'm not the biggest ambient listener, but oh man, I like this song a lot, as I liked the other song, the other ambient song, Cherry on Top. This is a lot more subtle in its sounds. It starts off really quite slowly. Overall, it never really builds up into some insane sound or anything, but it has its high crescendos, I guess you could say, for the track itself. And it just has certain sounds throughout the whole thing, bringing up the whole, as the song goes through and progresses. And I'm not going to really talk about them, because I think I'd be kind of spoiling it, and I can't really describe them properly. I really enjoyed the track though, so just go listen for yourself, and yeah. Raging Long. The vocals in this track actually sounded something like Nick Cave would do, just that, I can't really think of the word at the moment, but kind of gravelly kind of sound to them, and in the same kind of melody that he would do. Had a great melody, quite catchy. This was one of those tracks which was a little bit, seemed to have a lot less intricate sounds. Certainly it wasn't simple by any means, but it seemed to draw more attention to particular sounds throughout the song, rather than having just an absolute insane amount. Actually, towards the end of this song I found it sounding a little bit, I felt it was a little bit dragged out. Maybe that was to do with the fact that it wasn't really changing up too much. It was a bit, surely, but yeah, it wasn't bad though. It was only a little bit dragged out. But that certainly is changed with Networking, which is this really intense IDM song. Just has this really technical electro beat, and there's just so many details in this song. It's really fast paced, and it's just an absolute sensory overload. And yeah, this is one that your head will probably explode in. But it was good. I really enjoyed it. Then there's Oryx, which is another one of those kind of interludes. Thought nothing to this one. I think this was actually I enjoyed this even less than the other one. Thankfully there's only two short ones on there. I think the other one was a minute and this one is 30 seconds. The next track is Stay Out Here. This song has a really heavy house influence. You can almost imagine it being played in a club. This is one of those tracks where the amazing production really shines through. Just a really enjoyable track. I think Overloft probably had a lot of influence on this one. The next track, Fracking Fluid Injection. This was a lot more experimental, had a bit more drony elements to it. I didn't actually think that much of this track. It wasn't bad, but it just, yeah, I don't know. It was just a little bit, didn't really go anywhere. The sounds kind of changed up throughout, but it just kind of didn't have the same feeling as a lot of the tracks do. And then it closes off with Ready to Lose. This is just another Knife track. It's a great song, but it doesn't really switch anything up. It just brings in it just rounds up the whole album as a whole, I guess. Just has this thumping bass intro, great production throughout, really great melody, catchy, and yeah, just summarises the album, or summarises almost the Knife in just one track, I guess you could say. So yeah, I really enjoyed the album, as you can tell. I'm going to give it an 8.5 out of 10. It just had absolutely incredible attention to detail, just absolute perfect production. It could not have been better, from what I can tell. The songs vary so much that despite its immense length, the album never gets boring. Even towards the end, like while I was completely exhausted, I was not sick of it at all. I wasn't just thinking, oh, I just hope this ends. Apart from the fact that I really wanted to just go to sleep because I was absolutely... in terms of its length and exhaustion after you feel when you've finished it, I can probably only compare it to Swans. If you've listened to Swans, you'll know what I mean. Not only like do the songs vary, but like the genres vary throughout. Like Networking, which is a song that's quite close to the end of the album. By no means did I think that I'd heard this before. It was a completely new sound, and this album really just continued to do that, and it was really enjoyable. So thanks for watching. I will probably be reviewing James Blake next, but I haven't actually listened to the album at all yet, so yeah, thanks for watching. I will see you guys next time. Goodbye.